Well, all I want to say is it's hard for me to even have this conversation, Bradford. Um,
Hmm.
this has been a wild week. Oh my gosh.
Yes, it has.
We've seen the unveiling of the Cybercab to almost unanimously positive reviews, other than a few stupid people talking about it being a two-seater.
Hmm.
Had the Mechazilla catching the Super Heavy, like something out of a sci-fi movie. We've had a video drop today that put the lie to the notion that Optimi were entertaining guests last week were somehow teleoperated and they couldn't do the job. And then
Hmm.
we've had one of the largest logistics companies on the planet give a hearty yay to Semi. If that wasn't enough, we've had three of the most respected names in the vehicle automation business say that Musk is like, I don't know, what's the word you want to use? Superhuman, ahead of the pack.
Hmm.
And all of that to the most flat 4 days I think I've ever seen in Tesla stock. I mean, it's been like in a $2 or $3 range since Monday.
Hmm.
So what do you think?
Yeah, there definitely was not a SpaceX bump. In the past, sometimes people might confuse SpaceX with Tesla, and then when SpaceX has a major success, Tesla stock gets a bump. So that seems to be no longer happening. And there was pretty uniform, positive media reporting on SpaceX catching
Yes.
the super heavy booster. And the implications are that it just greatly continues to greatly lower the cost of space.
Right.
Um, so, that's why it's important. It's not just a billionaire
Having
playing
fun.
around.
That's right.
Yeah. Um, and so who was the transportation company giving endorsement to Semi?
Well, the three big leaders were Jensen Wang, who's basically has everybody else that's in automation is his client, and they're
Mhm.
relying on him to provide the chips and everything else that they need to
Yeah.
be able to do what they're going to do.
Yeah. So what he shared was essentially for XAI in 19 days,
Yes.
from start of idea to getting it going. Elon uh, basically got the project done, essentially, which is extremely radical.
Very radical.
Extremely radical. And Jensen Wang said it would take at least a year, if not 2 years or more, for that to happen. So I think part of that is the government in Tennessee, in Memphis, Tennessee, but also it's just the how Elon sets aggressive timelines, and he's going to transfer this knowledge back to Tesla too.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
so take those learnings and use them at Giga Texas, or maybe like one up it in a way at Giga Texas. It is taking a little longer in Giga Texas to get it all going. Um, and I'm just continuing to hear good things about the We Robot event.
Right.
Josh West, a Canadian influencer, he talked with the CEO of Pegatron at We Robot and essentially said that, well, I think it's a positive conversation, but what Pegatron is they're the number two supplier to Apple, and they're a supplier for Tesla. So they're a current supplier, and they could potentially be a customer for Optimus for the Tesla
Right.
bot.
Right.
Yeah. So I think that was the most important thing for the Robot event, was for those CEOs to see Tesla bot in person and to see to go on a Robotaxi ride. We also heard, so we got, confirmation of what, from Bloomberg, of what was cut from the event. Randy's talked about this
Yes, and
over the
you were the
past
one,
couple
and you
days.
were the one that you were the first one to say this wasn't what was supposed to happen. They changed the script here because of the fainting members of the crowd.
Mhm. Yeah, and I shared that with you Saturday night, I think.
Right.
Um, so yeah, that got cut, but also we also learned that Tesla bot was a late addition to the agenda where they added that 3 weeks prior. Um, so I think that was interesting. Yeah, I wonder if it was like from people speculating if the Tesla bot would be at the event and would be serving drinks. I know I mentioned that. So
Yes.
like
Yes.
when they announced it at the event that the Tesla bot would be serving drinks, I just like blew my mind. Yeah,
Yeah.
but it is odd, like how neutral the stock has been, you know, since the day
Right.
one reaction to the event. Yeah.
It's been crazy. I mean, I usually figure that the stock will be back almost to where it was by this time after any event. It tends to trickle upward for the next 3 or 4 or 5 days, and maybe it still will, but it's really been so flat. Well, a couple of the other ideas that people have had with regard to the reasons for the event would have been that it was I think it might have been Larry. I can't remember if it was Larry. One of the co-hosts said to motivate the employees was one idea. My thought was that this was a massive advertising gambit. So instead of advertising on the Super Bowl, you put on this event which gets massive PR. You have this 2,500 people there that are all influencers of one kind or another. And then you put this party on that's like nobody's ever seen a party like this before. And what are you doing? You're talking about uh, starting the new book. So Elon's talked about starting the new book, but you need to get that mission statement restated. You need to get it restated in different ways. And this seemed to be restating it in a very, with a lot of emphasis that we're going into the future here. And that was
Mhm.
what the whole theme was. So I thought that might have been one of the primary motivations for the event. But I do like your idea of pulling in these major CEOs. 150 was what I heard.
Yeah.
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 And we,
Yeah, I think eventually Tesla's mission becomes like accelerating the advent of sustainable life, going beyond energy and transportation. Um, so I think that's what the event that mission will change to. But yeah, I agree. It definitely was a huge celebration for the employees. They've been working a very long time. I met people with the design team who had been with the design team for 16 years
wow.
or been with Tesla for 16 years.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's a really long time.
That is a long time. And then it could have been, kind of the stated reason was to reveal the cyber cab. And it turned out to also do the one more thing, which is the Robovan. So, I think it accomplished that task very well.
Yeah.
Uh, very good headlines, really, for the cyber cab afterwards, from what I was able to see.
Yeah. And I'm in Orlando right now. That's why my setting looks kind of strange behind me. I'm
I
in a
thought you loved that art.
hotel
I
room.
thought you bought that art for your wife as an anniversary gift.
And I've been noticing on the bus trips from the resort to the mall or to the parks
Oh, oh,
that your average bus trip is about 15 or so people.
okay.
So, like the sizing on the Robovan
Yeah.
appears to be almost perfect to me.
Well, I figure that the sizing on the Robovan, I think I mentioned this actually the very next video that I did, is that you have a 40 or a 48 passenger bus because you've got a driver and you've got a high cost of fuel. So you
Hmm.
have to amortize that driver and that fuel into as many people as you can reasonably without having, they have double deckers, of course, in Europe. They also have the double length buses,
Hmm.
trying to get even better, leveraging out of the size of the vehicles. If you take out the driver and you reduce the cost of the fuel by 80%, you no longer have to leverage it. So now you can have a bus that's more consumer friendly, more interesting, more fun, better user experience. And so I think that might be part, of what's going on. It certainly would be true for somebody like Disney.
Yeah, splitting the cost of the driver over more passengers, I think is one key reason why buses are so big. Also, I think, city planners, they're trying to maximize toward like a peak hour of usage where the Robovan doesn't need to do that. It
Right.
it can it can just be a little more efficient in some of these choices. And maybe you just have more in operation during those peak hours.
Yeah, and they won't be as obtrusive. They won't be blocking traffic as much.
Mhm.
The on and off time for the passenger will be much less. So I think there's a whole bunch of reasons why this makes sense on that level. I'm not a massive. It's right now so far. I'm not like, wow, I'm so excited about Robovan in terms of the overall potential unit sales of the TAM, if you will. I'm
Mm.
sure it's a decent TAM. I would have much rather seen a commercial van size product. I feel like the TAM is much larger on that. It can also be an 8 or 9 passenger or even 12 passenger, kind of people mover. But who am I? What do I know?
Yeah. So the little point I disagree with there is like you're taking out that whole front row where you have a driver and you have this
Yeah.
like empty passenger seat.
Oh yeah.
You might have a space where like the driver gets ready for the next package or whatever.
Yeah.
You cut all that out. I think the Roboban might be that size or more on the inside of
Got it.
like what's left of that commercial van.
Yeah, actually, you saw it. So, did you think it looked very big, if you're not in front of it? Does it
Yeah.
feel that big when you're in front of it?
And it was also really low. It doesn't need to be that low. So they could have an air suspension or whatever, like the Cybertruck or the Model X does.
Right.
Um, so I think that's another reason why people were thinking it was small.
Okay. All right. Well, you folks at Rebellion Air, have you been thinking about the earnings call next Wednesday? I mean, we have AJ, he's at 50 cents. Jeff says he's a bit above that. He didn't really commit. Zach's consensus this morning comes in at 58 cents. The street estimates are from 60 to 67 cents. I think I've seen somebody that said 70. Have you guys thought about it? Have you got a number?
I didn't I didn't push Matt for a number yet. So if he does, that'll be on X. And on X he's got this weird handle. It's the word match, ASM Matt.
Okay. All right. Mash it.
Um, and so he'll likely post his estimate closer to the earnings call. Um, we think we have trouble seeing what a positive surprise might be. Um, if we were, I'd say there's I'll give you the potential upsides. So,
Sure. Sure.
um, if we were to, let's say, get the part of the dropped agenda that where Tesla was talking about the semi, where they're talking about the app, and where they're talking about economics of
Right.
the cost of the software,
Right.
um, that might provide a potential upside boost.
Mhm.
You could also have where Tesla might disclose how many subscriptions there are
Oh, yeah.
uh, for FSD, the monthly subscription. That could provide a potential boost if they started disclosing that on a regular basis. Um, those are some upsides we see. I think the earnings call would be a great time to introduce that extra agenda, but I hope that Tesla discloses that on like their YouTube channel, bare minimum. I just think it was like a lower level type stuff that they
Right.
dropped from that agenda where
Right.
they shared the higher level stuff.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I hope they get into that. Yeah, they essentially had to sell more cars into China this past quarter. Um, I don't feel like they were hit any harder by price cuts during the quarter for the third quarter.
Mhm.
Um, and Megapack sales were lower.
Right.
So overall, earnings will be lower. And it's those additional tariffs in Europe. Those are the reasons why they couldn't sell as many Model 3 into Europe.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, we also got some positive news this week, speaking of Europe, about the approval for Giga Berlin for that
Yes.
expansion there.
Yeah, that was another big, I mean, so much good news this last week. And so I feel like the stock right now is trading almost exactly where it would just for the metal bending part of the business. So
Hmm.
if all the company was doing was cars, trucks, and energy storage, if that was their whole business, and with an expectation of a pretty decent uptick on all of that next year, maybe even a 50% increase in earnings for next year, maybe even more than that because of energy, I feel like that's the stock would be at 220. That we've basically the entire um, what do you want to call it, optionality of Robotaxi and Optimus are gone. That's how I feel. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and Gary Black, he is a Tesla bull. He's a little more skeptical than the rest of us, but he believes the auto business is worth at least as much as where we are now.
Oh, he thinks
And
the auto business alone. Okay, interesting.
yeah, so and this is based off of Tesla's share of the EV market and where he thinks EVs could go by 2030.
I see. Uh-huh.
Um, and Tesla themselves has said they think um, production could grow by 50% next year
Right, right.
um, with their existing footprint, um, and that it wouldn't be a stretch versus their current capacity. Basically, using some of their lines, like there's a Model Y line in Berlin and one in Austin that are essentially not being used,
Right.
and might be in the process of being converted for another purpose.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, actually, I've done some numbers over the last couple of days, and I kind of confirmed them with Jeff that we probably in existing buildings, we probably without, we may not have the line set up yet, but with existing buildings and the expansion in Berlin, we could be well over 4 million vehicles without building without any other buildings being built. That would be like 2 million out of Austin, and then a million and six, seven, and then six, a million in Berlin, a million and plus in Shanghai, and 600,000 in Fremont. So you're over 4 million. So I think that's realistic now.
And that's what Jeff Lutz.
Yeah, Jeff and I discussed it. It was my idea, my thought.
All
So
right.
he was only responding to it. I don't want to put it on him that he's pushing this idea. I'm just saying, I don't see how to me, Austin's got to be 2 million, given the size of it, given the verticality of it, given that it's
Yeah, I think Austin should be able to do 2 million.
so that
Just on the first floor alone, they have two lines, or at least two lines. They're using one, um, and you got at least three floors you can do. So right there, that's 1.8 million.
yeah.
Um, so I would agree with you there. Where I disagree a little bit is like Giga Berlin. Um, I think in the existing buildings, they could do about 600,000 a year if they're like really rocking and rolling.
And then they're adding the other building. I was counting that.
So then you get to 2.6. Oh, I might get to your number here.
Yeah, yeah,
Then
yeah.
in China, you're basically at like 1.2 almost right now. Um, so that's really close to 4 million.
Yeah, it's really over.
Okay.
It's
All
really
right.
over. It's really over 4 million.
You got me. You
All
got
right,
me.
good. All right,
Let's
hey,
go.
I got two in my corner now. All right. So anyway, but yeah, so going to 2.7 million next year, going to maybe 4 million the next year without really having to build just the one facility in Berlin that's already in the process. and without having to break ground in Mexico or start anything in India or anywhere else. I am speculating though that the India thing might actually happen before Mexico, that probably is where they need to go next, but who knows? I'm basing that partially on the whole thing with Trump winning.
Mhm.
If Trump wins, India may be a better bet than Mexico.
All right.
Right? Okay.
Well, there's been so much anti-competitive moves, and maybe we talk about that in a moment. But even India came out against Starlink and said, "Well, we said we were going to grant you licenses, but now we're going to auction it off."
Oh, really? I hadn't
Yeah,
heard that. Auction it off to.
yeah. Reliance Industries, like their hometown company, said
I see.
you can't just give them the the spectrum, the
I see.
broadband spectrum or whatever.
I see. I see. I think it's okay. Well, however India wants to run their country. I know you brought this up in the green room, and I definitely want to talk about it. I mean, we've got California making a decision with regard to SpaceX because a negative decision based on Elon's posts
Politics.
X. We've
Mhm.
got Europe. This is the one that even almost bothers me more than the California thing, saying,
Yeah.
"Oh well, we're going to fine X for X, Y, or Z because we don't like what they're doing, and if we do fine them, we're going to collect that fine from any one of Elon's companies." I mean, this
Mhm.
makes no sense at all. These companies are not Elon's companies. These are
Yeah.
corporations. How can
It
Europe?
basically is every Elon company except for Tesla.
Oh, it said
Uh,
that?
so it's like Neuralink, Boring, XAI, and X, and SpaceX. So they'll base the fine based off of that percentage of revenues.
Yeah.
So that's not in their law anywhere, um, which is crazy. Yeah, the Coastal Commission, essentially, the Air Force and or SpaceX met all six of their demands for what they were wanting, but then because they don't like Elon entering the political race with his donations and support of Trump, then they said, well, we're not going to expand your launch licenses from 36 to 50. So SpaceX sued the California Coastal Commission in a what might be a federal lawsuit. I don't know
I think so.
whether
Yes.
it's federal or
Federal
state.
court. Federal court.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Holy
a
moly.
little it's wild. I think eventually countries are going to come to their senses and realize that making all these uncompetitive moves is going to backfire. Um, Emmanuel Macron, the president of France, and the former president of Italy, Mario Draghi, have been speaking a lot about how regulations just make you anti-competitive and risk your economy being left behind. And they did all these studies about it and recently presented those as a multi-year study. And they're finding like that the more you regulate like this, the worse it is. Um, so maybe these countries come to their senses, but I think we should expect more of this where countries try to support their hometown industries and companies first.
I have less problem with countries um, trying to uh, protect their industry. This is traditional. This is natural. It's something I think Trump wants to do. I think that even Biden did it to a certain extent by maintaining some of the tariffs and even increasing some of the tariffs to China while he's been in office. So I think this is a natural and normal thing to do to protect home industries. There's a difference between protecting home industries and just kind of going after a company because you don't agree with their politics
Yeah.
and then going against that company in the way that you described the European Union is doing or may do. where it is completely like I can't even imagine it's legal under international law. And I only took two classes in
Yeah,
international.
they have their rule as far as going after like 6% of revenues
Right,
for
right.
um them fining companies on certain things, but this appears to be extra legal.
Yeah, I think so. I'm pretty sure.
I don't know if it's that makes it illegal, but it's
Yeah,
definitely extra
extra
legal.
legal.
I'm not a lawyer, as you could
Yeah,
tell.
so speaking of regulations, we've also had Dylan Loomis do a fine job yesterday of putting together a video where he talked about where these, we've in the community, we've been talking through our hats maybe for 2 years now about what kind of regulations might apply to Robotaxi. I've said it, I'm sure I've said it a half a dozen times that there are no real regulations with regard to driverless robotaxis. At least the states, for the most part, do not have. And Dylan Loomis confirmed that I think 17 do have regulations that are okay with it. They're passing, more states are passing rules that are okay with the driverless taxis. But he brought up that NHTSA, and I'm always pronouncing that wrong because it's not a word, but the National Highway Transportation Safety. Anyway, they have a rule about 2,500 vehicles per year is all you can put on the streets without a set aside, without applying and getting approval from them to do more. I
Mhm.
haven't had a chance to do any more background on that. What did you think when you saw that Dylan Loomis uh, video?
I assume it's true. Uh,
Okay.
yeah, this would make it really hard for Tesla to start a a service in a city where essentially you want to blanket a city or an area with cars so that when someone opens up their app and summons a taxi, like that taxi is going to come.
Soon.
At worst with Uber or Lyft, I think it's like 9 minutes or something like that. Ideally you want to get it down to like 2 minutes, 2 or 3 minutes. That's a really great situation. And with only 2,500 cars, um, that would mean it'd just be very hard. Like they'd have to start in some suburb of one city.
Right.
And I think this is for cars that don't have
Driver.
a wheel and
Yeah, right.
pedal.
And other things like rear view mirror, windshield wipers, etc. Yes.
Mhm. Yeah, so I think for the Robotaxi, they would have to apply apparently to be able to run more than 2,500 at a time. But here's the kicker. So 3 and Y, they have a rear view mirror, they have wipers, they have a steering wheel, they have a pedal. So I am curious to learn more about this, but
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm guessing for like 3Y, S, and X, this rule would not apply.
Interesting. That would be interesting. It would also seem, I mean, it would say this to me should be the number one question for next Wednesday on the list. It's not even on the list right now, the ones that I've seen. But the number one question next week, I would think would be, is Tesla in the process of applying for the necessary regs or set asides or whatever on the national level and also on the California and Texas level? Are they getting that stuff lined up? Because California specifically said, no, we don't have anything from Tesla yet in this regard.
Yeah, some more specifics about when they would apply, what they expect that review process to look like as far as time. That would be great for investors to know. Um, the other, you know, the other piece is around, just having more certainty around Tesla figuring out how to get the disengagements down so that the car's not needing a human driver to prevent an accident by, disengaging and stopping the system from making a bad decision. that would be great to get that information on the earnings call, and I think was missing from the cybercab portion of the Wii robot event.
Reigns, 1220, I think it is. He's been very active recently and I like what he writes. And then we've got Peggy. Both of them have been talking the last couple of days about something that makes a lot of sense to me, and that is, it would appear from what we're seeing on these videos and what we're experiencing ourselves, maybe the same for you, that maybe we're down to three major things that the car does wrong, and maybe another couple of handfuls of minor things that the car does wrong. And if that's true, that would represent, like, 90% of the disengagements. And so
Mhm.
for at this point, it might be just a kind of a cook's left turn situation where, okay, if running red lights is one of the things that are not being able to deal with blinking lights at intersections. We know
Mhm.
that.
Yeah.
So if that's one of them, okay, concentrating on that would seem like something that wouldn't be so ridiculously hard to accomplish.
Right. And I spoke with a Tesla engineer at the event. This isn't material. This might be slight inside information, but basically they're still gearing towards something called Operation Vacation, where they're not needing humans involved in the process of solving or improving autonomy.
Interesting.
So essentially, they want to design the process so that the the whole process, the robots, the disengagements, however you flag things, that flags the issues, and then they design a solution around that to add those videos to the training set and add what the data in the car should be saying, like how should you be steering, how should you be hitting the accelerator.
Yeah.
Um, so telling it what it should do in an alternate version of that disengagement. Um, Essentially, they're trying to automate that process where
Oh,
they're not needing to drive Chuck's left turn
right. All right.
to solve it out. I think them testing at Chuck's left turn is a good way to validate and verify. And it is a dangerous situation, his
Sure.
left turn.
Sure.
You have an unprotected left, cross traffic's going 55 or more.
Yeah.
And there is a light to your right on that. And so it is dangerous. What I can say for my safety critical disengagements, and I've had hundreds, is none of them have been a lack of the car being able to see the other cars.
Hmm.
So it's a decision making issue. Um, so yeah, I have confidence that they'll be able to solve it. And yeah, I agree that it feels like there's a limited number of overall situations or groups of disengagements that they need to solve from here. But it does need to be automated. So
Uh-huh.
like it's it's a it's a huge problem they're trying to solve, to be able to solve it for like all of America or all of
All the
Texas and
world.
California,
For all of the world.
all
Yeah.
of the
Yeah.
world.
Yeah. Some godforsaken place in the middle of India where there's buses and I mean, I can remember looking out of my hotel window in Taiwan. This has got to be 40 years ago. But and it's 7 lanes or 8 lanes one way. This is city street. Okay. So right downtown Taipei, and like 7 or 8 lanes one way. And you've
Hmm.
got pedestrians, bicycles, mopeds, motorcycles, small vehicles, larger cars, vans, trucks, etc. And the rule in those days, now this is not, I don't think this is the legal rule. This is the rule of how you drive in that
Hmm.
situation in Taiwan at that time, may have changed, is whoever's the biggest has the right of way.
Hmm.
So put your car in that situation and let's see how it does, and that might be, the kind of edge case that would be, and there's things like that all over the world. There's things like that all over the world. I had a cab driver in Italy one time who wanted to get around the car in front of him, went up on the center divider, up on the curb, up, it was the center divider with the curb, went up on the center divider to get around the guy in front of him. And so, there's lots of crazy stuff out there.
Yeah. You, when I think about that scene you mentioned in Taipei, you also have like a lot of motorcycles in Vietnam,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
or mopeds or whatever. And I think like Hardware 3, there's stories of like people trying a Hardware 3 car there, and basically like it can't handle all the things in the scene.
I'm done.
So that might be a situation where they need like Hardware 4 or Hardware 5
Yeah.
to
Sorry.
be able to handle that. Yeah. Yeah, but like if you can set up a process to handle it from soup to nuts, from top to bottom, identifying the issue, suggesting a fix, trying the fix, things like that. Essentially that gives you scale, that gives you speed. If the computer can make a decision, then you create these videos that get added to the training set. So I'm optimistic that Tesla will figure it out. They're also paying attention to the various influencers to see, okay, what kind of issues are they running into?
Are they? Are they watching us? Even the little influencers?
They are, yeah, they are. So yeah, Chuck Cook said, a number of them introduced themselves to him.
Did
So
they? Yeah, right.
he's one of the beta testers.
That's right. Interesting. All right. Well, I'm going to let you go here in a minute. I will do the numbers without you because you say that
I
you
haven't stayed up on macro, and I'm on vacation
on
today.
vacation. That's right. So, any last minute thoughts before we switch over to looking at today's numbers?
I don't think so.
All right. Well, then enjoy the rest of your time in the world of Disney.
Yes, to those numbers.
That's right. Okay. Bye for now.
I
Okay, so let's take a look at what happened today. And we know, of course, that Tesla ended the day down a tad, down 44 cents. And it has since then, what in the world took place? Oh, no, I'm looking at the wrong thing. So sorry. It has picked up 28 of those cents in the after hours. I had the wrong thing looking at there right just then. Okay, let's go ahead. The Dow Jones ended up 161. NASDAQ ended up $6.53, not percent, that's index points. And S&P 500 ended up exactly 1.00. In percentages, that would be 0.37 up for the Dow, 0.04 for the NASDAQ, 0.02 down. That's again 100 down for the S&P, and Tesla down 0.20. The Magnificent Seven ended up mostly up today. Only Google ended the day down. Pretty good numbers. NVIDIA made a nice recovery, up 0.89% at the end of the day, but it had been up a lot more and came down big time at the end. Tesla has been running on its own steam all week. It hasn't had the rest of the market could do whatever it wanted to. If the market was going up, Tesla might have been going down and vice versa. But as I mentioned, it has been so flat, extremely flat all week. The Cathie Woods all mostly down, with a Square up a tad. Everybody else, all the rest of it was down today. Looking at those bonds, which have been a little scary recently, we'll take a look here at the bonds. We've got still sitting almost at 4.1, 4.095, unchanged, basically unchanged in the pre-market. The 2-year down 0.9 of a basis point at 3.978. And the 3-month up a bit, 2.9 at 4.68. Spreading out a little more from that 10-year, and the 2-month up 3.1 in the pre-market, again, spreading out further more inverted. Oil business. The oil close to unchanged for the day, 21 cents up in the pre-market at $70.88. Brent at 74.45. Not much change all day today. Natural gas also very unchanged in the pre-market, up 0.13% at 235. In general, though, natural gas has been sliding down. So we'll see what happens with that in the next few days. Gold up 0.6, or could I call that 60 cents? But 2,000, are you ready? 708. So working towards the all-time high again, nicely over 2,700 at this point. If you are a gold person and you are on the positive, on the bull side. Silver up 0.41% at 31,905. That might be starting to get into recent high territory there. It's got to be close. I haven't looked in a bit. And copper up 0.28% at 4,337, about where it's been. The dollar down slightly in the pre-market against both the yen and the euro, very slightly. Bitcoin down 464 for the day, still sitting though at 67,320, which is getting, solidly now in the bottom. Remember, I think there's two different trading ranges. There's a bottom trading range and a top trading range. Well, this would be now solidly into the bottom trading range, unless there's a whole new trading range developing. But remember, I'm not a technicalist at all. So this is the Randy method of figuring out what trading ranges are. The pre-market for the equities, the Dow up an entire 7 or 0.02%. The S&P up an entire 5.50 or 0.09%. And the NASDAQ up 45.25 or 0.21. So the NASDAQ, the one that is leading the way, at least in this pre-market. That's really all I've got for you right now. Earlier today, I did a second video with Scott Walter. This one was with regard to the video that Tesla put out on Optimus. As always, Scott delivered the goods. If you haven't seen a detailed analysis of the Optimus video, you definitely want to go back and take a look at this video. So I'll put that card right up there. Go back and check that out. And then tomorrow, tomorrow, in the morning we'll have regular, the regular after the bell. And then I've lined up Brian Wang for tomorrow. He's got a couple of very interesting things to talk about. And then we've got Larry Goldberg on for the good news opportunity on Friday night. It's been a great week of good news. I just wish the stock would play ball, but right now that gives us a buying opportunity. That would be the good news today. It is Randy Kirk. I've enjoyed my time with you tonight. It's been great talking to you.